Hi everyone, good to be with you today for this exclusive cybersecurity summit by Rohde Schwarz. So we're going to talk about the future of application security today. And I have with me Stéphane.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us today. So you're the Rohde Schwarz Cybersecurity France president.
That's right.
And the Application and Cloud Security Business Unit, Vice President. And you're going to talk about digital transformation, right? All right, and security. Edouard.
Hi.
Welcome with us, Edouard. So you're the head of product management, and you're going to talk about the roadmap of Rohde Schwarz. And hi, Frédéric.
Hi.
So you're going to talk today, you're head of R&D, and you're going to talk today about Trusted Application Factory, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Before we start, I would like to remind you about the hashtag CyberSummit that you can use on Twitter, of course, to share all your thoughts and any comments. So let's start with you, Stéphane.
All right.
I have one question to start, a question about news, actually, about the health crisis we're going through. Is there any impact on the industry of security?
Absolutely. What the crisis has shown is that the investment in cybersecurity is essential to enable digital transformation. During the lockdown, we have seen a lot of organizations who have been forced to invest in urgent mode in their IT infrastructure and their cybersecurity components. There was a surge of demand for solutions enabling secure remote access to corporate networks, such as VPNs, for which we are well known in Germany. And also, we have seen a tremendous growth in the consumption of SaaS, software as a service, and cloud-based solutions, which allow people to access corporate data and facilities and collaborate from anywhere, from their home, as if they were in the office.
Like Zoom, for example, we've heard about the security issues they had.
Right. So the consumption of these applications, be it Zoom or others, or collaboration apps, creates a security concern. In that they expose data in both personal identification information, which is protected, at least in Europe, for European citizens by the GDPR, and also sensitive information, sensitive informational assets that makes the value of organizations, be they private or public, and also the fact that with SaaS and cloud-based applications, the organization doesn't really have any control over the security of the application or its availability, which is potentially a meaningful, operational risk. Now, in our business, what we have seen is a lot of customers, with the lockdown, they had to delay a few decisions. So when the lockdown started to apply, some processes were impacted, but for the most part, they were just delays. And we've also seen a significant increase in the demand for our web application firewall in particular, and for our data protection solutions because of the opening of the corporate networks to those cloud-based applications and the need to secure them, especially in the healthcare sector, which has been under attack in meaningful ways, unfortunately.
Wow. And what are the main lessons you got from this experience?
So, from our perspective, after the containment or the end of the containment, now that we're striving to go back to normal, really the main idea is to regain control of your security. That means risk analysis of the decisions that were made, if they are not unmade. Where do we extend in terms of exposure to data theft, espionage, be it from industrial espionage or state-sponsored espionage, or exposure to I guess the sagacity of the American system, which has extraterritorial laws such as the Cloud Act that creates an issue for many organizations.
And we're talking about security, obviously. And as far as I understood it, there are many realities behind this security. There's security of data, security of systems. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, security is a big word. It includes a number of dimensions. Obviously, you mentioned networks, applications, systems, devices, data itself at the heart of the economy of tomorrow. Today and tomorrow, and also users, the rights that are granted to users to access those resources, be they devices, networks, and or applications and data. So what we are doing in our organization is to really focus on the security of applications and the security of data as people move to the cloud, because we have seen that this is the major sort of success criteria for any digital transformation project. If you don't have application security and data security, you're bound to fail, basically. So in application security, we have the traditional need to protect applications from attacks, exploiting vulnerabilities or business logic, or volumetric attacks such as denial of service attacks. But what we think is becoming more and more important now is to look at security by design of those applications that are being created to create, enable new digital services or new digital interactions, and also what we call adaptive security 2.0, which is really the taking to the next level the idea that your security policy needs to be able to adjust to a changing context. Not only users' behavior or location, or but also the sort of the needs of the business are evolving dynamically, and you need to adjust to that. When it comes to data protection or protection of data in the cloud, there is a risk. What we see is at risk is two main categories. I already mentioned personal identification information, our user credentials as members of an organization, but also the information that we are entitled, that our users, our customers, our business partners are providing us or lending the right to save. We owe it to them to keep that safe. And then there's the more essential crown jewels, information, what makes our business sustainable in the face of competition, for example. And there's basically a need to make sure that only the people that have access to this information should have access to that information. We should be able to encrypt the most sensitive data. We should be able to do that without necessarily giving the encryption keys to our cloud providers, especially if they are, meant to or legally obliged to cooperate with the Justice Department of that or another country. So the security of data, is really a question mark, as a lot of people move to the cloud even before the crisis, but now even more because it's one of the key things that we have seen interesting. We had tremendous show up at a webinar we did in June about the security of data in Teams. A very, very meaningful platform in terms of recent adoption.
Yeah, indeed. And you talked about the Cloud Act previously, and obviously we're heading to the GDPR, sorry. What are the main challenges, especially for data, is in what looks like more and more as an economic war right now?
You're right. I think this is not such a strong word. I mean, there is maybe a sense of recognition in our customers that what is happening right now at the at the global level is economic war. Even between or within the circles of allies. We have seen a lot of customers being very prudent because of the Cloud Act and other changes. The privacy shield has fallen, was denounced by the European Court of Justice, and more recently at an event organized by Exatrust, we heard some testimony from Frédéric, who really used strong words to describe what is happening at the global level. So it's the end of naivety, if you will. We need to be recognizing, what the situation is, and stop being, too trustful with what is going on. When it comes to the cloud, a lot of companies in Europe are using American clouds and tomorrow Chinese clouds, right? Because they are the most mature and there's not, a lot of options. Well, maybe there's not, but maybe there is, and that's the whole purpose of the Gaia-X project at the European level, to really help customers, public and private institutions, realize that there's choice, and growing or building on interoperability, being able to identify better options for their needs based on the risk analysis that they do. So in our opinion, it's really important now that customers rebalance their investment in European technologies, or in favor of European technologies, because while they are there's not really a lot of options when it comes to cloud infrastructure, there is choice. There's a choice we can make when it comes to how we secure our usage of the cloud or of those cloud platforms. And it is our strong belief that we don't have to put all of our eggs in the same basket. Mm-hmm. We can keep control of our data even as we use those international renowned cloud platforms. I think it's the foundation of what everybody calls for strategic autonomy. Doesn't mean we don't use those American clouds, but at least we don't rely solely on American solutions for securing access to those clouds. There's a lot of options, and I would like to thank the customers who have already taken the steps to build and favor those European technologies to secure their data and their applications in the cloud, because that's a step in the right direction, in our opinion.
Thanks for drawing the context, actually. But in that context, what is Rohde Schwarz Cybersecurity strategy right now?
Right. So first of all, a word about Rohde Schwarz Cybersecurity. We're a recently created organization 4 years ago. The combination of the coming together of several small expert companies, German and French, with key expertise, 15 to 20 years of expertise in key technologies such as network encryption, virtualization of desktops, and virtualization of the browser, which is a key foundation for isolating, devices from external threats, application security, and also protection of data in the cloud. Our strategy right now is to continue to innovate in those four spaces with a view to serving the needs of our customers, who are mostly European and non-aligned countries. Mm-hmm. But our intention, our strategy is to leverage the access that the group, Rohde & Schwarz, has globally to be able to address a more global market opportunity.
All right.
And from my BU's perspective, you mentioned the privilege of running the application and cloud security business unit. We have two digital bets that we are working on that are leveraging some key trends that we see in the market. Let me just describe those trends quickly.
Sure, go ahead.
Agility is a major one. The businesses, public service organizations are moving to accelerate their ability to engage with customers or constituents via a number of new services. We are seeing cloud as the default choice for building those new services, and mobile apps as well. Mm-hmm. They come together almost. APIs is the next big trend. Everything's API driven now. To enable interactions between very heterogeneous systems and create and publish the data that is required for those interactions with customers. And finally, automation, and maybe I should say robotization, is a key trend that we see happening in our space in support of digital transformation.
And what about the bets you were mentioning earlier?
All right, so the first one that we have been working on is this notion of data privacy in the cloud. This is a huge space. It covers many things, from making sure that only the right people have access to the data that they're entitled to access, being able to do that between organizations that don't have the same, that don't belong to the same legal entity, or are working in geographies with their own specific local or national requirements in terms of regulations, the need to be able to encrypt sensitive information, sensitive documents, again, compliance with local or corporate regulations that are sometimes very different, and it's a complex environment. And today what we are seeing is there's a lot of options, a lot of solutions that tend to want to resolve or to meet that need, but a few of them, or very few, are actually enabling people to match all those requirements. We believe that Trusted Gate, our product, does that because it supports the major applications, collaboration applications in the cloud, or even your own organization's applications. It's totally transparent for users, meaning there's no need for them to change their ways. It preserves business workflows, meaning there's minimal impact in the way businesses are running. It matches the need or the preference for no client software running on the PCs or the devices that people are using. And last but not least, it addresses the need or the requirement that some customers have to keep control of their encryption keys.
Sure.
Right? Because the natural choice otherwise would be to give the keys to the driver you want to prevent that drive your car. Right?
So what about the second bet? This is the first one.
Right, so that's the first one. The second one is really what we're going to talk about for the rest of the afternoon, or the morning, sorry, is our challenge is to secure tomorrow's applications. We have been doing this with web application firewalls for almost 2 decades now, but a major shift is taking place in the market with agility, new DevSecOps teams, working together to create new digital services very quickly and effectively. And we see, application security controls moving into the very fabric of applications, into the very fabric of APIs. That's what is happening, and that's the direction the market is taking, from the design phase all the way to the run phase. The active security controls need to be embedded, and that's what we are working on. And our contribution to that is leveraging our knowledge and our expertise in WAF technology.
Yeah.
We're going to make that technology consumable by developers, and I'll let the team explain in a few minutes what that means. But it's not an insignificant challenge, because WAFs have been a sort of a pain in the neck for some of these people. But we intend to show you today that we're in the right direction. We're going in the right direction to meet that security challenge, or that challenge operationally for developers.
All right, thank you, Stéphane.
Thank you.
Before we move to Edouard and Frédéric, I think you wanted to say something, to add something.
Yes,
right?
I'd like to address a big thank you to our customers and partners. They are our best advocates, and I'd like especially to expand my thanks to those who have contributed to the Gartner Peer Insight platform with feedback of our products, which have resulted in very good scores that you can see on the screen. and also encourage them to continue to update their input, their feedback, and create more positive resonance for our products on that platform. In general, I would say we're very happy to continue to work very closely with you, creating and designing new products and new solutions that meet the challenges of tomorrow, as we'll see or hear about in a few seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Stéphane. So let's move to the vision on application security and roadmap of Rohde Schwarz with you, Edouard. So going right into it, I have a first question. Stéphane was just saying a few seconds earlier, integrate application security right from the design phase, and you said moving into the fabrication of the application. I think you wanted to add something about this or say something?
Yeah, it's totally part of the digital transformation. So the main idea is to, most of the customers are consuming application and APIs, and it's a way for companies to promote their innovation. So it's a huge attack surface. And as their innovation, they need to integrate the security in it directly and to test some ideas, to adapt, to enhance, to continue to do security when they are building the software and not when we are putting it in production.
All right. And this is actually like a new way of thinking the product or thinking the process?
Yeah. And it involves a lot of underlying concepts. In fact, people that are, for example, inside their digital transformation are also organizing continuous integration. They tend to shorten the cycles of their applications.
Right.
For example, in a traditional way to do a software, we used to take 8 months to produce a software, then 2 other months to test it, 2 other months to put it in production. We don't want this anymore. So we need to do small iteration, and so we have to automate everything. That's the main idea. And the second one is to break the silos, in fact.
Yeah, Stéphane was mentioning this before, I guess.
Yeah. One good way to do so is to reorganize the team in order to break the silos. For example, in DevOps and DevSecOps teams, so to put both developers and operational guys, and also to add the security. And the idea is to, when we are working on the same team, we can be more quick in our different actions, to interact quickly, and then to do the smallest iteration possible. Another thing that is required by the company is the ability to scale. Since they are deploying in the cloud and they are paying only for what they use, at the same time they need to be able to scale when a peak of traffic occurs, and to scale down also when the peak of traffic is finished, for example. So they need their application to scale, but also their security solution that need to scale as the application. And last but not least, the deployment method. We need to be able, as a company, to deploy into multiple environments. Some of our customers, for example, deploy in both public clouds and private data center, for example, or some big groups are deploying their application inside several public clouds. So it's really important to have an agnostic solution, being able to manage all this deployment the same way and to leverage the same skills and the same rules, in fact.
All right, so you just said it, in multiple environments of deployment. It means a lot of use cases, obviously. So I would like us to go more in depth in this breaking silos. What does it mean concretely for DevOps or DevSecOps?
Yeah, so when you enter into a DevOps team, there are some underlying needs also, like being able to automate everything, to deploy your application or your web application firewall, to deploy it automatically, to scale automatically, and to do what we call infrastructure as code. So leveraging some scripts and so on in order to do it without any human interaction. And having no human interaction is the best way to avoid any errors that could be made,
sure,
and to be able to reproduce without any problem. And for DevSecOps, it's exactly the same thing, but including the security in it. So being able at the build phase to know if there are some vulnerabilities in your software, but also to be able to design your security policy directly at the build phase in order to protect your application.
All right. So let's focus a little bit on DevOps. And I would like you to tell us more about automation and scalability that you start to mention.
Yeah. So what we have done in the past 18 months is, for example, integration into marketplace, like Amazon, GCP, Azure, but also we are partnering with Outscale for sovereign deployment. So the main idea is to be able to deploy our web application firewall directly inside the cloud, and to be able to leverage the pay-as-you-go business model to pay only for what you use. And it's also important for scalability. The second part is to have exactly the same product no matter what the deployment method is. So we built exactly the same version for each of these deployments. Public cloud, but also the private cloud is managed exactly the same way. One of the things that we have done is to work on scalability. So 10 years ago, the solution was not meant to be able to scale, and also was not meant to be able to be removed when a peak of traffic has finished. So the idea in what we have done is some script in order to detect the performances of the web application firewall, and to know when you are reaching a threshold or the limit of your web application firewall, to be able to have new instances in order to handle a peak of traffic, and when it's finished, automatically remove it. But it's completely done through scripts. And we also work on the orchestration API of our web application firewall to do exactly the same things that we are able to do in a classical GUI, but with an API and with some script.
All right, so if I understood properly, you want to provide your client with a solution that they can use everywhere. So in that specific case of an agnostic solution, as you said, how do you manage the complexity for maintenance, for example?
Yeah, so the idea is to automate everything, to be able to do infrastructure as code. And once you deploy your application, you do not have to do anything anymore, in fact. So it's called the NoOps, for example. You don't need to take care about your web application firewall or your application when you are doing the same thing for your application. And everything will be scripts, and everything that could occur will be answered automatically.
Okay. I think that you're not a newcomer about automation, right? And about automatically. So is that something that you're going deeper?
Well, we have made more than 10 years ago the workflow system. So it's a graphical way to do your security policy.
All right, yeah.
And it has been synced in order to react to some things. For example, you can say in your workflow, if something, then I will do something. So you were able to think about the context. If something occurs, then I will block it, then I will react like it, and so on. So we already had the automation in mind, and it's completely the trend of the DevOps and DevSecOps. We also, by doing the API, we have think about being able to automate everything. And one more recent example is the Redis connector that we made. So it permits to ask in a database for some information. And so the web application firewall is completely aware of its ecosystem. And you can put information in a Redis database we see this information, so you could complement our threat intelligence, but we could also, in a SOC team, to say something to the web application so that with the workflow, he is able to adapt himself and to adapt to the context.
Okay, that sounds great. And you work on any other solutions for DevOps?
Yeah. Today we are introducing the micro WAF. So the idea is to have a WAF directly in a container with only the security engines. So the smallest possible, close to deploy, close to the application. So the application can be in a public cloud, in a private cloud, on-premise. We are deployed close to it, and it's directly connected to a SaaS infrastructure that will manage all the other functionalities.
All right. Thank you for this presentation, and I think it's quite clear for DevOps. Did we miss anything, or do you want to add something, or that's?
Yeah. Well, one thing which is important is the micro WAF concept will be introduced today with Trusted Application Factory. So we leverage some containers and we put our security engines in it. And then we will explain how we will integrate the security directly inside these containers.
All right. Thanks. I would like us to move to DevSecOps.
Yeah.
Is there any major differences with DevOps, or?
No, currently the same principle for DevOps are true for DevSecOps. Okay. We just add, I would say, another layer or another concept on top of it. So, for example, when a developer produces some code, he will commit it inside a CI/CD pipeline in a DevOps and DevSecOps way. And so it's the idea is to, when the code has been produced and has been committed, a pipeline will automatically execute. So the CI part is for building the application. So each time we will have a commit, a script will automatically build it, make some tests, but also if all the tests are okay, are green, we will provide this application and package it. And then the CD part for the continuous deployment. So since the software is done, we will automatically deploy it in production.
All right. So as far as I understood it, the objective is to, I don't know how to say, move upstream in the code, right? And put automation in all the workflow. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. We want to automate everything. Each tests that we do also are completely automated in order to have the shorter possible iteration. So, for example, when we say we do some tests, it could be some functional tests to make sure a new version of the application is okay, is working, all the functionalities are working. But we also automate the security. So there are different types of tests. For example, the static tests with, for example, analysis of source code in order to detect some vulnerabilities, but also the dynamic tests that will be done directly in a pre-production environment that is created through the pipeline. And then we are able to test the application, but also, for example, the web application firewall, which is an opportunity to detect automatically some false positive, for example, and so on and so forth.
All right. So what are the different tools you use in productions or in different phases to build the product?
Our customers are using different tools. So first at the build phase, when we are building, so for example, SaaS products that will analyze the source code. Some of the in the test phase, so for example, DAST for dynamic test. And then at the run phase to protect when the application is deployed, to protect the application. And traditionally, the web application firewall is usually seen as the run phase to protect the application. But some of our customers are using also our web application firewall in a pre-production environment to make sure in the tests that everything is okay. right now, the new trend is to give some tools to the developers in order to build their security at the build phase. So our idea is to have the web application firewall at every phase of the conception and the deployment of the application.
All right, and this is what you call security as code?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Currently, we have work on infrastructure as code. So, for example, to deploy automatically the web application firewall, leveraging Terraform scripts, for example. Then we worked on the configuration as code. As soon as we deployed the web application firewall, we need to configure it. And the new era is the security as code. So here the idea is to be able to design the security outside of the product and being able to tell how I will protect my application.
That sounds pretty much like a revolution, security as code, but you were just saying to tell how you want to protect your application. What do you mean exactly by this?
Well, it can be different things that will be introduced by Trusted Application Factory, a new product. And one of the idea, for example, is to give the context of the application. So the developer, when he will create some code, it will also describe the application to be protected, to say whether or not we have a SQL database or which programming language are we using. And the main idea is to use it directly in the CI/CD pipeline and to transform this qualitative information into security policy, so that we could directly adapt our web application firewall and to have a security policy tailored for the backend or the application to protect. And the idea is to lower automatically the number of false positives and to have better performances since we will activate only the security engines that will be used.
Okay. And do you go further or beyond this point for security?
This point, in fact, is I would say the first step, in fact. But we also are able to describe all the security policy, but also the false positive management. So since we have a pre-production environment, the idea is also to detect automatically with a new code, a new version of the application, the potential false positive, and to be able to describe them in a configuration file that will be committed by the developers and inject it in our web application firewall so that when it will go through the CD pipeline, when it will be put in production, we will be able to directly handle this false positive. And exactly the same thing with the security policy. We are able to describe outside of the product in configuration file what we want to do in terms of security and then to transform them in our containers in order to do it.
All right, I think you have a second step, right? Where you can go beyond that.
Yeah, we have kind of, I would say, ultimate step. It means that it's a requirement, but only for the customers that will want to go deeper and higher. And the main idea is to describe the security policy by writing some code and not a configuration file. So you will be able to describe by writing some code what you want to do, to say if something, then I will write like this, and it will be automatically transformed in a, I will say, classical security policy like you know already, like the workflow system, by our engines, in fact, but it's an ultimate step. I mean, not all the customer will use it. We have designed this product with different steps for each kind of requirement, and this is the most important one. Some of them will use it. Some other will define a workflow with the GUI, for example, and inject some configuration in it as an input to adapt the workflow behavior.
All right, thanks. Thank you for this presentation of the roadmap. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, Edouard. So can you, just in a minute, make a wrap-up of all these key learnings you can give through to us about all this?
So currently we have one technology that is our engines of the web application firewall, but with different form factor, I would say. So the first one is the web application firewall in the version 6.5 that you can deploy, for example, in virtual machine, in classical appliances, hardware appliances. And you can also take the same software inside the cloud marketplace, like GCP, Azure, AWS, and so on and so forth. Then we have Cloud Protector, which is the SaaS version of our web application firewall with simple interface, and it's completely SaaS. So you redirect the traffic from your DNS, for example, through our infrastructure, and then we handle the traffic, we protect them, and then if the traffic is okay, we let it pass through the application and the backend. So the idea is to do not care about the scaling or the updating of the software. We handle everything ourselves.
All right.
And the last step is Trusted Application Factory, so that we introduced today. So same kind of technology, I would say the same security engines, but also in a different form factor. So leveraging containers with only the security engines and being able to inject through the CI/CD pipeline our context, our configuration, our false positive management, and our security policy directly inside the product.
Thank you, Edouard. Yeah, we're going to move to Trust Application Factory. Thank you. I remind that I haven't said it at the beginning, sorry about that, that you're the head of the product management, right? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to move to Frédéric. You're the head of R&D, and you're going to tell us more about the Trusted Application Factory. Can you tell us the challenges?
Yes, of course. As you understood in the presentation of Edouard, Trusted Application Factory is designed for DevSecOps teams, be it within startups or any large companies launching digital factories or a SaaS vendor. The three main objectives that the solutions aims to accomplish is security, simplicity, and visibility. First of all, security. Pushing the configuration of the security close to the application code provides many opportunities to define a more precise and more relevant security. And this security is deployed as a micro app in a container directly with the application. That allows to scale up and scale down directly with the application to adapt the security to the load of this application. And having the security configuration directly in the application code also enables to keep all the time the security up to date with the application and align with the version of the application. And so the second main objective is simplicity. To be efficient, the solution needs to be integrated in the environment of DevSecOps teams. It means to use the same tools, the same concept, and the same language as already existing ones in the DevSecOps teams. And the last requirements, the last big needs for our customer is to have some visibility on the security of the application for all stakeholders, developers, but also security guys. And the benefit of Trusted Application Factory is because it follows the application and the security from the design to the run in production, it can provide indicators and visibility on the security of the application all along the life cycle.
All right. Can you be a little bit more specific on this value, the added value of Trusted Application Factory on security issues, and tell us more also about the micro WAF deployment?
Yes. I will start with micro-RAF. Okay. Regarding the deployment, the security service of Trusted Application Factory is deployed directly with the application as a container. So if we look at existing web application firewall solution, they are deployed in the network infrastructure as a single entry point in front of all applications. It's not longer the case with Trusted Application Factory. So the container is directly deployed in front of the application, for instance, in a Kubernetes cluster, and can be scaled as other services in the cluster. Another benefit is that it is deployed with the application. It can be deployed as well on-premise, but also in the cloud, whether private or public cloud. And all security services are managed and supervised by a single SaaS console, administration console.
Okay.
So this console gives to users an overview of all the security for all applications. And if we look to the security, I said that we can define, yes, and more precise. The information specific to each application and in the hand of developers are very, very interesting for security. For example, defining what is the persistence engine used by the application, what is the language of the application, what is the operating system of the server, and what are the format of exchange data. With all this information, we can generate automatically security configuration using the relevant security engines. And for teams, for DevSecOps teams who want to go deeper, we provide also the capabilities to define very precisely each resource's context, each endpoint. For instance, for a REST API, for each endpoint of this REST API, we can define the format, the size of the request and the response, the standard behavior with the rate limiting, for instance. And all this definition will rely on the extension of OpenAPI that allows to define very, very precisely each endpoint of REST API.
All right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a breakout session this afternoon dedicated
right.
to this.
For people who want more details on this point, breakout will be dedicated to this context description.
All right, great, thanks. We mentioned earlier, I think it's Edouard who talked about it, simplicity of integration, simplicity of use, and how Trusted Application Factory addresses this challenge.
It's very, very important. It's really a key point for the security. The more this solution will be adopted by DevSecOps team, the more the security will be efficient. So we really focus to facilitate this adoption. And to do so, we have to integrate the existing environment of DevSecOps. Using the same tools, we do not want to add a new layer of complexity. We want to integrate in the existing world of DevSecOps. So that means that what we call security as code is integrating the security configuration directly in the code of the application. So this configuration is committed with a source code in tools like Git or SVN. And build tools like GitLab CI or Jenkins is able to push automatically the micro-RAF, the container, in test environment, in production or pre-production environment, and to set the configuration defined in the code directly in this container. It ensures to have exactly the same behavior in all environments, with no surprise in production, for instance. And if we, just before also, there will be a another technical breakout dedicated specifically to the integration in the pipeline CI/CD. If we look now directly inside the configuration file, we can see that we will use the same language as already known concept for DevSecOps teams. So on the current slide, on the left, you can see Docker Compose example. So it's a file used by ops in a DevSecOps team to automatically deploy infrastructure and configure infrastructure. So you have the infrastructure as code and the configuration as code. And on the right, you see the security as code, the configuration of the security. And as you can see, it follows exactly the same language and the same principle. At the end of the file, you can see the context description we mentioned just earlier. So for this part also, the security as code, you can follow this afternoon technical breakout dedicated to this concept.
So I think you mentioned the way you administrate all this. Is there any administration console that is built into the solution?
Yeah.
All right.
As we have seen just before in the deployment, there is a SaaS console for administration.
Right.
And in this SaaS console, you will have some dashboards with indicators on security and quality of the application. In the development phase, you will have information on specification, on the test. You will be able to raise some alerts if there is a mistake or a problem with some specification, or if something is not well tested. And you will be able to get some details on it. So for instance, this attribute is not specified, or this resource of the API is not tested. So you can trigger some alerts. And in the production part, you will be able to get some statistics on the usage of the application. So for instance, important requirement we get from some customer is to be able to detect unused resources. So you will be able to identify which resource is not used any longer, and with this information to reduce the surface attack on your application.
All right, thank you for this presentation of Trusted Application Factory. So my next question is on the user side, on the client side. If I want to use this solution, my first question is when?
Good question.
Yeah.
Of course. First of all, as soon as today, you will be able to get a preview on the product if you want to test it and to have a demo.
Great.
And this afternoon in the technical breakout, you will have a first overview of Trusted Application Factory built on this preview. If you want to get it, you can directly contact us via your sales representative or by the email displayed on the current slide. Okay.
And what's next? I mean, this is the preview, but what are the next steps?
The objective is to deliver and to provide Trusted Application Factories through different increments.
Okay.
And each increments will provide new functionalities and improvement from customer and user feedbacks. The first milestone will arrive soon, next month, on 16th November. The objective of this first release is to be able for our customer to start their pilot project. So it will integrate the different concepts we discussed just before, so the context description, deployment as a container, ability to manage the security in the application code with, for instance, exception as code, and to get some metrics on the service. Then, beginning of next year, a second version will be available This version will provide enhancement and improvement on existing features to integrate feedbacks from users, and also the ability to specify more precisely security. For instance, security team will be able to define their workflow through a GUI and to integrate it in the security service for the DevSecOps teams. And this version will also be the first one with dashboards on security.
Okay.
And in the middle of next year, a new version will be available for advanced usage. So with workflow as code mentioned by Edouard just before, and also with the extension of the API to define resources by resources security.
Okay.
And this version will also integrate a lot of improvement and enhancement in the dashboard, in the security.
Okay, so 3 major steps, starting from now to test it to mid next year, right? Okay,
right.
Thank you. And I'm still a client, I'm still a user. I want to test it. I want to be sure it fits my needs. How can I be sure of this?
Yeah. That's very interesting because as we discussed, as I explained, we want really to integrate the universe of DevSecOps teams to match our usage. And development teams, before committing and purchasing new solutions, wants to test it, to validate that it matches their requirements and that they are able to use it, to effectively put it in their pipeline. So for that, we have decided to provide a freemium version of the product without any limitation regarding the features, because we want to provide tools for DevSecOps teams to really test it. The limitation will be on performance, to be able to deploy it, but it will be limited, for instance, by a request per second. And as soon as DevSecOps teams will validate it, they can subscribe to a premium version without any limitation and to run it in production.
All right, so limitation not in time, but in performance, right? In volume.
Yeah.
And so imagine I'm paying for the product, I'm in premium. What do I pay? How does it work?
Yeah. For this, we follow the well-known usage now. It's a pay-as-you-go.
Okay. So
it means that you will pay only for what you are consuming, with the ability to credit your account if you want more visibility on your consumption. And the pricing itself will depend on the number of requests per application and per month, and the overall the total amount of protected application.
All right, I think it's quite clear. Thank you. And I have one more question for you, because I think Edouard mentioned, and you, Stéphane, also agility for companies, how important this is right now, fast sprint methodology, and of course, building your product with your users. So the question is then, how do you get feedback from your user? And the answer for many companies is building a community, right?
Yeah. A good point is really we want to go inside the universe of DevSecOps teams, and we want to exchange, to get feedbacks. So in the meantime of the products itself, we launched the initiative of DevSecOps community with a website coming soon. This website will provide some articles, some white papers, some video, beginning by the technical breakouts of this afternoon, to help the users to get benefits from the product, to ask questions to Rohde Schwarz team, but also to other users, to add comments. And this website will be directly linked to the GitHub project of Rohde Schwarz. And this GitHub project will include scripts, use cases, a lot of resources to get the maximum of the solution. And several customers, existing users with advanced usage of our product, ask us several times, how can I share my work, the result of my work, with other users?
Great.
They are ready to share, and it's very, very interesting for us and for all the communities.
Of course.
They will be able also to share their work in this GitHub project.
Oh, great. That sounds great. Thank you very much, Frédéric. So before we move to the breakouts and the workshops, I propose you, Stéphane, to conclude this roundtable.
Happy to.
Please.
As Edouard and Frédéric have shown, and as I hope you'll be able to see in the technical workshops, I believe that what we have just presented to you this morning is the future of application security. And for those of you who have been working with us for a long time, this is only the next logical step. The famous workflow concept that seduced you with its simplicity and power makes our WAF quite unique because it's programmable. And it's very easy to adjust the policy to the context, which by definition is a very dynamic thing. And so all we had to do was to make this WAF fit into a container, almost, and we just did that. So this new form that our technology takes now is, complements the previous form factors that Edouard reminded us of, the ability to run on premises, in a public or private cloud, on virtual appliances, in SaaS mode with Cloud Protector, and now in the very fabric of your applications. For those of you who are learning about us today, for you DevSecOps team members who need to produce secure applications in a continuous manner, I am sure you will love this security as code concept, and we're really looking forward to welcoming you on board our developer community, working with us to make this technological improvement a real revolution, something that is going to make you love the WAF. So yes, and then from a business perspective, as we've listed here, why is it a great step forward? Because really it attempts and manages to enable people to be agile without breaking security and without compromising on security, with increased productivity for developers, and also what is also very needed for any real step forward in application security, the ability for every stakeholder to see what's going on and to have a handle, visibility on the status of those big digital transformation projects. And finally, for those of you who have the need to keep control of your code, if you're in a sovereign business and want to make sure that you keep control of the security of your applications, you can now do that with Trusted Application Factory. So again, we're very excited about this new product and we're looking forward to interactions with you.
Thank you, Stéphane. Let's start the revolution.
Let's do it.
Maybe you want to say a few words to launch the breakouts or the workshops?
In a few minutes, you'll be able to access our breakout sessions. There's 10 of them, lots of choices. I want to give you a few suggestions. If you're interested in the DevSecOps topic, really follow the breakouts in the order that's shown on the screen. Context description first, CI/CD pipeline, and then security as code. Obviously, the Yes We Act presentation about bug bounty is very interesting. If you're more interested in what we have done in the last 18 months in terms of cloud automation with web application firewall and Cloud Protector, please follow the tracks. There's no particular order there, but this one sounds a bit logical. And obviously, I'd like to invite you to take the time to follow our breakout session on Trusted Gate. Very interesting use case on how to secure your data as you move to the cloud. And then, once you're done with this, please let us know. Please download the product, give us some feedback, and let's get back here, no later than in a year from now, or sooner than that, for an update on Trusted Application Factory. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.